The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain of the Afghan mountains as Staff Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her scope for the third time in 10 minutes. The weight of her M24 sniper weapon system felt familiar in her hands, though the eyes of 12 Navy SEALs watching her every move felt anything but comfortable. She had been assigned to their elite unit for this mission, the first Army sniper to work with SEAL Team 6 in over 2 years. "You sure about this, Santos?" Chief Petty Officer Jake Morrison called out from his position behind a boulder. His voice carried the skepticism that had followed Maria since she arrived at the forward operating base 3 days earlier. "That target is 800 meters out, uphill, with crosswinds. Even our best shooters are having trouble with it." Maria didn't respond immediately. Instead, she studied the distant target through her scope, watching how the wind moved the grass and debris around the abandoned building they were supposed to clear. The mission briefing had been straightforward. Eliminate any hostile snipers positioned in the building before the team moved in to extract a high-value intelligence asset. What made it complicated was the building's position on a ridge, surrounded by natural cover, that made approach difficult and shooting positions limited. The SEAL team had been trying for the past hour to neutralize what intelligence suggested were 3 enemy snipers positioned in different windows of the building. Their shots had been close, but not close enough. Each miss meant the enemy now knew their approximate positions, making the eventual assault more dangerous for everyone involved. Maria had watched each attempt, taking mental notes of wind patterns, light conditions, and the slight elevation differences that seemed to be throwing off the SEAL snipers' calculations. She had requested permission to attempt the shots herself, which had earned her a mix of surprised looks and barely concealed annoyance from the team. "I've studied the target for an hour," Maria finally replied, her voice calm and professional. "The wind is consistent but stronger than you're compensating for, and there's a thermal updraft from the valley that's affecting bullet trajectory in the last 200 meters. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Hayes, the team leader, crawled up beside her position. He was a veteran of dozens of missions, with a reputation for making tough decisions quickly and effectively. The fact that he was even considering letting an outsider take the shot spoke to how critical this mission had become. "Santos, I need to know you can make these shots," Hayes said quietly. "If you miss, we're looking at a frontal assault on a fortified position. That means casualties." Maria met his gaze steadily. "Allow me to attempt it, sir. I won't miss." The confidence in her voice wasn't arrogance. It was based on years of training and experience that most of the SEALs didn't know about. Maria had grown up hunting in the mountains of Colorado, where she learned to read wind patterns and make impossible shots before she was old enough to drive. Her father, a Vietnam veteran and competitive marksman, had taught her that shooting wasn't just about pulling a trigger. It was about understanding everything between the barrel and the target. When she joined the Army, her natural talent had been quickly recognized. She had graduated at the top of her sniper school class and had spent the last 5 years making shots that others considered impossible. Her record included successful engagements at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters in various challenging conditions across 3 different combat deployments. But records and training meant nothing to the SEALs until she proved herself in their world, under their conditions, with their lives on the line. "One shot," Hayes decided. "If you miss, we go with the assault plan." Maria nodded and settled into her shooting position. She controlled her breathing, feeling her heart rate slow, as she entered the focused state that had become second nature over the years. Through her scope, she could see movement in the second-floor window of the target building. A brief shadow that indicated the position of the first enemy sniper. The wind was tricky, gusting from the southwest at approximately 12 miles per hour, but with irregular stronger gusts that could push a bullet off target by several inches at this range. The thermal currents Hayes had mentioned were real. She could see their effect in the way dust and debris moved in patterns that didn't match the surface wind. Maria made her calculations, adjusting for wind speed, direction, temperature, humidity, and the subtle bullet drop that would occur over the 800-meter distance. She also factored in the slight cant of her rifle, the difference in elevation between her position and the target, and even the rotation of the earth. Factors that many shooters ignored, but that could mean the difference between a hit and a miss at extreme range. The first target appeared in the window again. this time staying visible long enough for a clear shot. Maria exhaled slowly, letting her natural respiratory pause settle her body into perfect stillness. Her finger found the trigger, applying the steady rearward pressure she had practiced thousands of times. The rifle cracked, and the 308 Winchester round left the barrel at 2,800 feet per second. Maria tracked the shot through her scope, watching for impact while simultaneously working the bolt to chamber another round. 0.8 of a second later, the target dropped from view, and she could see the spider web pattern of the shattered window where her bullet had found its mark. "Confirmed hit," Morrison called out, lowering his binoculars. His voice held a note of surprise that he tried to conceal, but Maria was already shifting to acquire the second target. Intelligence had indicated 3 snipers, and she had seen movement in 2 other windows during her observation period. The second target was in a different building position, requiring her to adjust her aim point and recalculate for a slightly different angle and wind effect. This target was being more cautious, appearing only briefly in the window before pulling back. Maria waited, controlling her breathing and maintaining her position while sweat ran down her back under the Afghan sun. Patience was as important as marksmanship in her profession. She had once waited 6 hours for a single shot during a mission in Iraq, never moving from her position until the target presented itself. The second enemy sniper made the mistake of becoming predictable, appearing in the same spot at regular intervals to scan for threats. When he appeared the 4th time, Maria was ready. Her second shot was as precise as the first, and another confirmed hit was called out by the observers. 2 down, Hayes said into his radio, preparing to move to final shooting position for target 3. The third target was the most challenging. It was positioned in a window that was partially blocked by debris, requiring a more precise shot placement. Additionally, this sniper had apparently learned from watching his companions fall, and was being extremely careful about exposure times. As the team prepared to move to a better position for the final shot, Maria studied the target building with renewed intensity. She noticed something the others had missed, a pattern in how the remaining enemy sniper was moving. There was a reflection visible in a piece of broken glass hanging in an adjacent window, and she could track the target's movement even when he wasn't visible in his primary position. "I can take the third shot from here," she announced. "Negative," Hayes replied immediately. "That angle is impossible. We need to reposition." "Sir, I can see his movement pattern in the reflection from the broken glass in the next window. He's about to expose himself in 3, 2, 1. As if on cue, the third target appeared in the window, visible for perhaps half a second before pulling back. It was barely enough time for most shooters to acquire the target, much less take a successful shot. But Maria had anticipated the movement and was already aligned when the target appeared. Her third shot was the most challenging of the day, requiring her to aim at a target that was partially concealed and visible for an extremely brief time. The bullet traveled through the same difficult wind conditions and found its mark with the same precision as the previous 2 shots. "Target down," Morrison confirmed, and this time his voice held unmistakable respect. "All 3 confirmed eliminated." All 3 confirmed eliminated. The silence that followed was filled with a new kind of tension. The SEAL team had just witnessed something that challenged their assumptions about their own capabilities and their new team member. Maria had made 3 consecutive shots that their best snipers had been unable to make, and she had done it with a calm confidence that suggested this was routine for her. "Outstanding shooting, Santos," Hayes said as he moved up to her position. "I've never seen anything quite like that." Maria was already breaking down her rifle, preparing for the next phase of the mission. "Thank you, sir. The building should be clear for your approach now." But as the team prepared to move out, Morrison approached her with a question that had been bothering him since the shooting demonstration began. "Santos, how many shots have you made like that? I mean, long-range precision shots under combat conditions?" Maria paused in her equipment preparation, considering the question. She had been keeping an informal count of her successful engagements since her first deployment, partly out of professional pride and partly because her unit commanders often asked for statistics in their reports. "Since I've been deployed, sir? About 97 successful long-range engagements under various conditions. Today makes it an even 100. The number hung in the air like a challenge. In the SEAL community, precision shooting was considered one of the most important skills, and most of their snipers were proud of engagement records in the 20s or 30s. 100 successful shots represented a level of consistent performance that was almost unheard of. 100 shots without a miss? Morrison asked, his skepticism now mixed with genuine curiosity. 100 successful mission-critical shots, Maria corrected. I practice regularly, and have missed plenty of times on the range. But when it matters, when lives are on the line, I don't miss. As the team moved out toward their objective, Maria could hear the quiet conversations happening behind her. The SEALs were processing what they had just witnessed and trying to reconcile it with their preconceptions about Army snipers and female soldiers in combat roles. Lieutenant Commander Hayes fell into step beside her as they approached the target building. Santos, I'm going to be honest with you. When they told me I was getting an Army sniper attached to my team, I wasn't thrilled. We're used to working with our own people, and we have our own ways of doing things. Maria nodded, understanding the sentiment. Inter-service rivalry was common, and special operations units were particularly protective of their methods and personnel. But what you just did back there, Hayes continued, that was exceptional work. I've worked with some of the best shooters in the military, and I've never seen 3 shots like that made consecutively under those conditions. I appreciate that, sir, Maria replied. I'm here to support the mission in whatever way I can. As they reached the objective building and began their clearing operations, Maria reflected on the morning's events. She had proven her capabilities to a skeptical team, but she knew that earning their complete trust would require more than just good shooting. Special operations was about more than individual skills. It was about working as a cohesive unit, where every member could depend on every other member without question. The building clearing went smoothly, with no additional enemy contact. The intelligence asset they were extracting was found in a basement room, alive and unharmed but clearly shaken by his weeks in captivity. As the team prepared for extraction, Maria maintained overwatch from a position that allowed her to cover their approach route. During the helicopter extraction, Chief Morrison sat down beside her in the aircraft's cargo bay. Over the noise of the rotors, he leaned close enough to speak directly into her ear. You know, Santos, the boys are going to want to see more of what you can do. Those 3 shots were impressive. But SEALs don't just care about marksmanship. We need to know you can handle yourself in close quarters, under pressure, in situations where shooting isn't the answer. Maria smiled, understanding what he was really asking. Are you inviting me to join your training exercises, Chief? I'm saying we've got some challenging scenarios coming up, and if you're going to be working with us regularly, you need to prove you belong here in every way that matters. As the helicopter carried them back to base, Maria looked out at the rugged Afghan landscape below and considered Morrison's words. She had taken the first step in earning the SEAL's respect. But she knew the real test was still ahead. In the special operations community, one successful mission was just the beginning. Trust was built through repeated performance, under increasingly difficult conditions, and she was ready to meet whatever challenges the team would present. The mission debrief would be routine, but Maria knew that her performance would be analyzed and discussed long after the official reports were filed. Word would spread through the special operations community about the Army sniper who had made 3 impossible shots. And with that attention would come increased scrutiny and higher expectations. But as she cleaned her rifle that evening, Maria felt satisfied with the day's work. She had done what she came to do. And she had done it with the precision and professionalism that defined her approach to military service. The 100 successful shots she had mentioned to Morrison represented more than just marksmanship. They represented a commitment to excellence that she brought to every mission, every day, regardless of the circumstances or the skepticism of her teammates. 2 weeks after the mountain extraction mission, Maria Santos found herself facing a different kind of test. The SEAL team had returned from a brief rotation stateside, and Lieutenant Commander Hayes had requested that she participate in their advanced training exercises at a classified facility in the Nevada desert. What he hadn't mentioned was that these exercises were designed to push even experienced SEALs to their breaking point. The facility, known simply as the ranch to those who trained there, was a sprawling complex of buildings, obstacles, and shooting ranges that could simulate almost any combat environment. Maria had arrived the night before, to find herself assigned to a barracks room next to Master Chief Petty Officer Tom Rodriguez, a 20-year veteran, who served as the team's senior enlisted advisor. "Santos," Rodriguez had said when she introduced herself, "I've heard about your shooting. Impressive work in Afghanistan. But tomorrow, we're not just testing your trigger finger, we're testing whether you can think, move, and fight like a SEAL when everything goes wrong." The morning briefing was conducted in a stark conference room by a civilian instructor who introduced himself only as Mr. Black. He was clearly ex-military, with the bearing and scars that came from years of special operations experience. The briefing was simple in concept but complex in execution. A hostage rescue scenario in an urban environment. With multiple buildings, unknown numbers of hostile forces, and strict rules of engagement designed to protect civilian casualties. Your team will insert via helicopter at 0800 hours, Black explained, pointing to aerial photographs of the mock urban environment. Intelligence indicates that between 5 and 15 hostile forces are holding an unknown number of hostages in this building complex. Your mission is to neutralize all threats and extract all hostages with 0 friendly casualties. Maria studied the photographs, noting the multiple building levels, narrow alleyways between structures, and numerous windows and doors that could conceal enemy positions. It was exactly the kind of complex environment where traditional sniper tactics would be limited, requiring her to adapt her skills to close-quarters combat scenarios. "Santos," Black continued, "you'll be operating as part of the assault team, not as a traditional Overwatch sniper. Your rifle will be available, but you'll also be carrying standard close-quarters equipment. The scenarios are designed to test your adaptability and your ability to function as an integrated team member under stress." Chief Morrison, who had been quietly studying the mission photos, looked up at Maria. "You comfortable with close-quarters battle, Santos?" "It's different from long-range shooting." "I've done building clearance before, Chief," Maria replied. "Maybe not at your level, but I'm trained in small unit tactics and urban warfare." What Maria didn't mention was that her confidence came from more than just Army training. Growing up in Colorado, she had spent summers working with her uncle's private security company, learning executive protection techniques and close-quarters defense methods that went well beyond standard military training. Her father had insisted that she learn to fight with her hands as well as she could shoot, believing that a complete warrior needed to be effective at any range. The first scenario began an hour later. The team fast-roped from a helicopter onto the roof of the main building, immediately taking fire from multiple positions. Maria found herself separated from Hayes and Morrison when a simulated explosive device forced the team to split into 2 groups and approach the target building from different directions. Working with Petty Officer First Class Danny Chen and Petty Officer Second Class Mike Thompson, Maria had to clear a 3-story building while the rest of the team engaged targets in the adjacent structures. The exercise used advanced simulation technology that made the scenarios feel completely real, with computer-controlled opponents that reacted intelligently to the team's movements and tactics. "Santos, take point," Chen ordered as they approached the building's main entrance. It was a test of trust, putting the Army outsider in the most dangerous position, while the experienced SEALs provided support. Maria accepted the position without hesitation, checking her M4 carbine and ensuring her sidearm was easily accessible. The building entry was textbook, with proper timing and coordination. But what followed tested every aspect of her training and instincts. The first floor contained 3 simulated enemy positions, each requiring different tactics to neutralize safely. Maria's movement through the building was smooth and efficient, demonstrating the same calm precision she showed with long-range shooting. When she encountered a scenario where a hostage was being held at gunpoint, she made the decision to use her sidearm for a precise headshot that neutralized the threat without endangering the civilian. "Clean shot," Thompson called out as they moved to the next room. Right between the eyes from 15 feet, but the real test came on the second floor, when Maria found herself alone after Chen and Thompson were eliminated by a simulated ambush. According to the exercise rules, she could either wait for backup from the other team elements or attempt to clear the remaining floors by herself. Waiting was the safe choice. But Maria had noticed something during their approach that the others had missed. She had observed a pattern in the window movements on the third floor that suggested the enemy forces were following a predictable rotation schedule. If her timing was correct, she could use the building's internal stairwell to reach a position where she could eliminate multiple targets quickly and efficiently. "Chief, this is Santos," she radioed to Morrison. "I'm going to attempt solo clearance of floors 2 and 3. I've identified a tactical opportunity." "Negative, Santos," Morrison replied immediately. "Wait for backup." "That's not how we do business." Maria paused at the bottom of the stairwell, considering her options. She could follow Morrison's orders and wait, which was clearly what he expected her to do, or she could trust her own judgment and attempt something that would either prove her capabilities or demonstrate that she didn't belong with this team. "Chief, requesting permission to explain my tactical assessment," she radioed back. There was a pause before Morrison responded. "Go ahead, but make it quick." "Sir, I've observed a 60-second rotation pattern in the third-floor windows. The enemy positions are vulnerable for approximately 15 seconds every minute when they move between observation points. If I time my approach correctly, I can eliminate all remaining threats before they can react or endanger the hostages." Lieutenant Commander Hayes broke into the radio conversation. "Santos, that's a high-risk assessment based on limited observation. If you're wrong, you're compromised with no backup." "Sir, I'm confident in my assessment, and if I'm wrong, the exercise ends with my elimination, but the tactical situation doesn't become worse for the team overall." Another pause, longer this time. Maria could imagine the discussion happening between Hayes and Morrison as they weighed her request against standard procedures and their own assessment of her capabilities. "Santos, you have permission to proceed," Hayes finally replied. "But if this goes sideways, we're having a very different conversation in the debrief." Maria started up the stairwell, timing her movement to coincide with what she believed was the enemy rotation schedule. Her heart rate remained steady, and her breathing was controlled, despite knowing that this decision would significantly impact how the SEAL team viewed her capabilities and judgment. The second floor cleared exactly as she had predicted, with 2 enemy positions that were temporarily unmanned during the rotation. She eliminated both targets quickly and quietly, then moved to the stairwell leading to the third floor. The third floor was where her assessment would be truly tested. According to her observations, there should be 3 enemy positions, with a rotation schedule that would leave all 3 vulnerable for a 15-second window that would occur in approximately 30 seconds. Maria positioned herself at the top of the stairwell and waited, counting down the seconds until the window of opportunity would open. At exactly the moment she had predicted, she moved into the hallway and engaged all 3 targets in rapid succession, using both her rifle and sidearm to neutralize threats that were positioned at different ranges and angles. The entire engagement lasted 12 seconds, well within her predicted window of opportunity. "Floor 3 clear, all hostages secured," she radioed to the team. "Building is secure." The silence that followed her transmission was telling. Maria had just accomplished something that was supposed to require a full team, and she had done it based on her own tactical assessment against the direct advice of the team leadership. When the exercise concluded and the team regrouped for immediate after-action review, the atmosphere was tense. Mr. Black and the other instructors had obviously been monitoring the entire exercise, and Maria's solo clearance had clearly not been part of the planned scenario. "Santos," Hayes said as soon as the team was assembled, "explain your decision-making process on the solo building clearance." Maria had anticipated this question and had prepared a detailed explanation of her tactical reasoning. "Sir, I identified a pattern in enemy movement that presented a tactical opportunity. Based on my observation, the risk of attempting solo clearance was lower than the risk of allowing the enemy additional time to reinforce their positions or harm the hostages." "You disobeyed a direct order from Chief Morrison," Hayes pointed out. "Sir, I requested and received permission to proceed from you after explaining my tactical assessment. I followed the chain of command appropriately." Morrison stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "Santos, what you did was either brilliant tactical thinking or dangerous cowboy behavior. The fact that it worked doesn't automatically make it the right decision. I understand that, Chief. But in my assessment, the tactical situation justified the risk, and the execution proved that my assessment was correct." Mr. Black, who had been taking notes throughout the exchange, looked up from his clipboard. Santos, in your Army experience, how often have you been in situations where you've had to make tactical decisions independently, without direct support from your team? The question was clearly designed to understand whether Maria's decision-making had been based on experience or recklessness. Sir, I've been in similar situations on 7 previous missions, including 3 where I've had to clear buildings or positions independently due to tactical circumstances. And the results of those missions? All successful, sir. 0 friendly casualties, all objectives achieved. Hayes exchanged glances with Morrison before continuing the discussion. Santos, what you accomplished today was impressive. But SEAL operations depend on team coordination and following established procedures. Individual initiative is valuable, but not at the expense of team cohesion. Maria nodded, understanding the underlying message. Sir, I appreciate the feedback. My intention was to support the mission objectives, not to operate independently of the team. If my methods were inconsistent with team procedures, I'll adjust my approach accordingly. But privately, Maria was frustrated by the response. She had successfully completed the mission using sound tactical judgment. But the focus seemed to be on her deviation from standard procedures rather than the results she had achieved. It was a reminder that earning acceptance in the special operations community required more than just technical competence. The afternoon brought a series of additional scenarios, each designed to test different aspects of combat effectiveness. Maria found herself working with different team members in various combinations, allowing each SEAL to assess her capabilities and reliability under different conditions. During a helicopter assault exercise, she worked with Petty Officer Thompson on a challenging target that required precise timing and coordination. Thompson was initially skeptical about working with someone who had bucked team procedures earlier in the day, but Maria's performance during the exercise was flawless, and she demonstrated an ability to anticipate his movements and support his actions effectively. You know, Santos, Thompson said as they waited for the next scenario to begin, you're different from what I expected when they said we were getting an Army sniper attached to the team. How so? Maria asked. Most snipers are lone wolf types. They like to work alone, set up in a hide site, and take their shots from a distance. You seem to actually enjoy working as part of a team, even in close-quarters situations. Maria considered the observation. I think good shooting is important, but it's only one part of being an effective soldier. I've always believed that the mission comes first, and if that means adapting to different roles or working in ways that aren't my specialty, then that's what I do. The final exercise of the day was perhaps the most challenging. A nighttime scenario that required the team to infiltrate a defended compound, eliminate specific high-value targets, and extract intelligence materials without alerting the remaining enemy forces to their presence. Maria was assigned to work directly with Chief Morrison, which she recognized as both an opportunity and a test. If she could earn Morrison's approval, she would have the support of the team's most influential enlisted member. The infiltration phase went smoothly, with Maria demonstrating proficiency with night vision equipment and stealth techniques. But the critical moment came when they encountered an unexpected sentry who wasn't part of the briefed enemy positions. Morrison signaled for Maria to eliminate the sentry silently, which required her to use hand-to-hand combat techniques rather than her weapons. It was a test of whether she could handle close-quarters combat without the tools she was most comfortable with. Maria moved behind the simulated sentry with efficient silence, applying the restraint techniques she had learned years earlier from her uncle's security training. The elimination was quick and quiet, allowing the team to continue their mission without compromise. Nicely done, Morrison whispered as they moved toward the primary objective. Where'd you learn to move like that? Family business, Chief. Maria replied quietly. My uncle runs a security company. I learned a few things growing up. The mission continued successfully, with Maria contributing to both the tactical planning and execution phases. When they extracted the intelligence materials and exfiltrated without detection, Morrison's assessment of her performance was clearly positive. During the final debrief of the day, Mr. Black provided individual feedback to each team member. When he reached Maria, his comments were detailed and specific. Santos, your technical skills are exceptional. and your tactical thinking is sound. Your decision-making today showed both confidence and competence. However, your integration with team procedures needs work. Special operations requires individuals who can think independently while still functioning seamlessly as part of a larger unit. I understand, sir, Maria replied. How can I better integrate my approach with team expectations? Spend more time observing team dynamics before making independent decisions. The SEALs have developed their procedures through years of experience and trial. Your tactical innovations may be valuable, but they need to be introduced in ways that enhance team effectiveness, rather than creating uncertainty about coordination and command structure. As the training day concluded and the team prepared for evening meal and rest, Maria reflected on the lessons learned. She had proven her technical capabilities across multiple scenarios, but she had also learned that acceptance in the special operations community required more than just individual competence. It required an understanding of team culture, communication patterns, and the subtle dynamics that made elite units effective. Chief Morrison approached her as she was cleaning her equipment for the day. Santos, you did good work today. But tomorrow's exercises are going to be even more challenging. The scenarios are designed to test how you handle stress, uncertainty, and situations where standard procedures don't apply. I'm ready, Chief, Maria replied. What should I expect? Expect the unexpected, Morrison said with a slight smile. And remember, we're not just testing your skills. We're testing whether we can trust you with our lives when everything goes wrong. The alarm sounded at 0300 hours, jolting Maria Santos from the deepest sleep she had experienced in weeks. Red emergency lights bathed the barracks in an eerie glow as loudspeakers crackled to life with an urgent message that made her blood run cold. All personnel to briefing room Alpha immediately. This is not a drill. Real-world emergency response initiated. Maria was dressed and moving within 90 seconds, muscle memory taking over as she grabbed her gear and headed for the briefing room. Around her, the SEAL team members were moving with the same urgent efficiency, their faces reflecting the seriousness of being awakened for an actual emergency rather than another training exercise. Lieutenant Commander Hayes was already in the briefing room when the team assembled, along with several officers Maria didn't recognize and Mr. Black, who looked as if he hadn't slept in days. The wall displays showed satellite imagery of what appeared to be a remote facility in mountainous terrain. Gentlemen, and Santos. Hayes began without preamble. We have a real-world situation that requires immediate response. 6 hours ago, a research facility in northern Pakistan was overrun by hostile forces. The facility was conducting classified research for the Department of Defense, and intelligence indicates that critical materials and personnel are being held by an unknown number of armed individuals. Maria felt the familiar tension that preceded actual combat operations, but this time it was mixed with the realization that she was about to participate in her first real mission with the SEAL team. Everything up to this point had been training and evaluation. Now lives were genuinely at stake. The Pakistani government has requested our assistance, Hayes continued, and we have been tasked with conducting an immediate rescue operation. Intelligence is limited, but we believe there are between 12 and 20 hostiles, holding approximately 8 research personnel in the main laboratory building. Mr. Black stepped forward to provide additional details. The facility is located in a remote valley, accessible only by helicopter or a single mountain road that we know is heavily defended. The building itself is a converted monastery, with thick stone walls and limited entry points. Traditional assault methods are compromised by the terrain and defensive positions. Maria studied the aerial photographs and architectural diagrams that were being displayed, noting the challenging approach routes and the limited options for establishing overwatch positions. The target building was positioned on a plateau surrounded by steep terrain, making it an extremely difficult tactical situation. Santos, Hayes said, drawing her attention back to the briefing, this is going to require precision shooting under conditions we haven't trained for. The terrain doesn't allow for traditional sniper positions, and the building's construction limits our options for supporting the assault team. Chief Morrison added, we've got one chance to get this right. If we mess up the initial approach, those hostages are dead, and we're looking at a prolonged siege situation in hostile territory. As the briefing continued with details about insertion methods, communication protocols, and extraction plans, Maria found herself analyzing the tactical challenges from multiple perspectives. The mountain terrain reminded her of the Colorado hunting expeditions of her youth, but the defensive nature of the target building required a completely different approach than anything she had encountered in her previous deployments. "Sir," Maria said during a pause in the briefing, "I'd like to review the topographical data more closely. I think there might be an approach option that hasn't been considered." Hayes gestured toward the maps and satellite imagery. "Show me what you're thinking." Maria moved to the display and began tracing potential routes with her finger. "The conventional wisdom says we need to approach from the valley floor and work our way up to the target. But if we look at this ridgeline to the east, there's a possibility of establishing a shooting position that would give us oversight of the entire facility while remaining concealed from ground-level observation." The team gathered around as Maria explained her analysis. "The ridge is approximately 1,200 meters from the target building, which is within my effective range. More importantly, the elevation would allow me to cover multiple approach routes and provide support for the assault team regardless of which entry point they use." Mr. Black studied the topographical data carefully. "Santos, that ridgeline is accessible only by a vertical climb that would take hours. We don't have the time for that kind of approach. Sir, I've done rock climbing since I was a teenager. With the right equipment, I could reach that position in under 2 hours. And once I'm in place, I could provide overwatch for the entire operation." Lieutenant Commander Hayes exchanged glances with Morrison before responding. "Santos, are you suggesting a solo insertion to establish a sniper position while the rest of the team conducts a direct assault?" "Sir, I'm suggesting that we use the terrain to our advantage instead of fighting against it. If I can establish position on that ridge, I can eliminate threats before they even know we're in the area. That reduces the risk to the assault team and increases our chances of getting the hostages out safely." The room fell silent as the team leadership considered Maria's proposal. It was exactly the kind of independent thinking that had caused tension during the previous day's training exercises. But in a real-world situation where lives were at stake, innovative tactics might be the difference between mission success and failure. "The climbing approach is feasible," Mr. Black admitted after studying the terrain data more closely. "But it would require Santos to operate independently for several hours, with no backup and no immediate extraction option if things go wrong." Maria had anticipated this concern. "Sir, I understand the risks. But my assessment is that the tactical advantages outweigh the personal risk, and if the ridgeline position proves untenable, I can still reposition to support the standard assault plan." Chief Morrison stepped forward with a question that went to the heart of the team's concerns about Maria's integration with their unit. "Santos, if you take that position, and the assault team encounters unexpected resistance, are you prepared to abandon your position and join the direct action, even if it means giving up your tactical advantage?" The question was a test of whether Maria understood that being part of the team meant putting the team's needs above her own specialties and preferences. "Chief, my job is to support the mission and the team. If the tactical situation requires me to abandon the sniper position and join the assault, that's what I'll do." Hayes made the decision after a brief consultation with the other officers. "We'll modify the mission plan to include Santos's ridgeline approach. She'll insert 2 hours before the main assault team, establish position, and provide overwatch and long-range fire support. If the assault encounters heavy resistance, she'll displace to join the direct action as needed." The next hour was spent refining the mission plan, coordinating communication protocols, and preparing equipment for the modified approach. Maria found herself working directly with the team's communications specialist to ensure that she would have reliable contact with the assault team throughout the operation. As they prepared to move to the helicopter insertion point, Petty Officer Thompson approached Maria with a question that reflected the team's evolving attitude toward her capabilities. "Santos, when you made those 3 shots in Afghanistan, you said that was number 98 through 100 for your successful engagement count. What's your actual count now?" Maria had to think about the question. In the weeks since the Afghanistan mission, she had participated in 2 other operations that had required precision shooting, though neither had been as challenging as the mountain extraction. 104 successful engagements, counting training scenarios where live ammunition was used. "And you've never missed a shot when it mattered?" Thompson pressed. "I've never failed to complete a mission due to marksmanship issues," Maria replied carefully. "I've missed shots on the practice range. And I've had to take multiple shots to complete some engagements. But when lives are on the line, I find a way to make the shots that need to be made." The helicopter flight to the insertion point took 3 hours, flying low through mountain valleys to avoid detection by radar systems in the region. Maria used the flight time to study topographical maps and satellite imagery, memorizing approach routes and identifying potential fallback positions if her primary plan proved unworkable. As they approached the drop zone, she reviewed her equipment one final time. In addition to her standard M24 sniper rifle, she carried climbing gear, additional ammunition, emergency medical supplies, and a backup radio system. The total weight was substantial, but she had trained with heavy loads in mountain environments and was confident in her ability to make the climb. "Santos," Chief Morrison said over the helicopter's intercom, "remember that this isn't about proving anything to us anymore. We know you can shoot. This is about bringing everyone home safely." Maria nodded, understanding that Morrison's comment reflected the team's acceptance of her capabilities and their trust in her judgment. She was no longer the outsider trying to prove herself. She was a team member with a critical role in a dangerous mission. The helicopter insertion went smoothly, with Maria fast roping to a landing zone approximately 2 miles from the target facility. As the aircraft departed, she found herself alone in hostile territory, with a challenging climb ahead and a mission that would test every skill she had developed over her military career. The climb to the ridgeline was more difficult than her initial assessment had suggested. The rock face was steeper than it had appeared in the satellite imagery, and the weather conditions included intermittent snow that made handholds treacherous. But Maria's years of climbing experience in Colorado served her well, and she reached the target position with 15 minutes to spare before the planned assault time. From her position on the ridge, Maria had a commanding view of the entire facility. She could see the main laboratory building, the approach routes that the assault team would use, and several defensive positions that hadn't been visible in the aerial reconnaissance photos. Most importantly, she could see movement inside the building that indicated the locations of both hostile forces and potential hostages. "Overwatch in position," she radioed to the assault team. "I have visual on the target building and surrounding area, counting at least 12 hostile positions, with additional movement visible inside the structure." "Copy, Overwatch," Hayes replied. "Beginning approach to primary assault position. Report any changes in enemy disposition." What Maria observed over the next 30 minutes changed her understanding of the tactical situation significantly. The hostile forces were more organized and better equipped than intelligence had suggested, with coordinated patrol schedules and communication equipment that indicated professional military training rather than the irregular forces that had been briefed. "Actual, this is Overwatch," Maria transmitted to Hayes. "Enemy forces appear to be more sophisticated than briefed. I'm observing coordinated movements and professional-grade equipment. Recommend approach modification." "Overwatch, explain your assessment," Hayes responded. "Sir, these aren't untrained insurgents. Movement patterns and equipment visible suggest professional military training. The defensive positions are better organized than anticipated, and I can see communication equipment that indicates they're coordinating their positions actively." There was a pause, as the assault team leadership processed this information and adjusted their tactical approach based on Maria's observations. Her position on the ridgeline was providing intelligence that would have been impossible to gather from ground level, validating the decision to modify the original mission plan. "Overwatch, we're proceeding with the assault. Provide fire support as targets present themselves, and maintain communication about enemy movements." As the assault team began their approach to the target building, Maria tracked multiple enemy positions through her scope, prioritizing targets based on their threat to the advancing SEALs. The first shots she would fire in this mission would begin her count toward what might become her most challenging shooting day since joining the military. The facility was about to become a battleground, and Maria's position on the mountain ridge would prove whether her unconventional approach to supporting the team was the tactical advantage she believed it would be, or a dangerous deviation from proven special operations procedures. In either case, the lives of 8 hostages and 6 SEAL team members now depended on her ability to make shots that mattered under conditions she had never faced before. As the first enemy sentry came into her crosshairs, Maria controlled her breathing and settled into the shooting position that had become as natural as walking. The mission was no longer about proving herself to the SEAL team. It was about bringing everyone home alive from a situation that had become more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. The shot that would make her engagement count 105 was about to begin the most challenging mission of her career.